Have you seen Star Wars?
Back in 2013, EA and Disney made an exclusive publishing deal where EA would make all the Star Wars games over the next decade, ending in 2023. And one of the developers working on a Star Wars game was called Visceral Games, and their game was titled Project Ragtag while it was in development, and was meant to release in May of 2018. Well, as you all know, EA cancelled at least 3 known Star Wars games over the past 5 years, and one of those was the Ragtag game being created by the Uncharted series director Amy Hennig. The game was meant to be a third-person live-action shooter game similar to the Uncharted series, but of course set in the Star Wars universe during the reign of the Empire. And recently, a former producer for the game has shed some light on the project and what went down that led EA to cancel the planned game. Here's the information from the article on Eurogamer. It says, its main character, a rogue producer Zach Mumbach described as a cross between Robin Hood and Star-Lord, was well formed. Its design was well underway, with several levels and major set piece involving an ATST chase nearing completion. Mumbach was a veteran of Visceral when the studio began working on Hennig's Star Wars project, codenamed Project Ragtag, but things were tough from the start, he said, after the team at Visceral was forced to quickly pivot back from its previous project, Battlefield Hardline. The timing was weird, Mumbach told MinMax Show. The sequence of events was like, hey, we have a studio with their own engine who makes really high quality single player games, the Dead Space series, and we're going to take that studio, move them to Frostbite, and have them make a Battlefield game. Okay, I'm fine with that. I stayed there and worked on that. But we have a lot of people at the studio who were experts on narrative and single player games, and those people left, and that's fine. Some of them went to Crystal Dynamics and worked on the Avengers game. That kind of stuff happens. Then we went and hired a bunch of multiplayer first-person shooter experts to help us with Hardline. Cool. So to ship Hardline and go, hey, you guys are now going to make a single player third-person game, that's the thing which is hard for me to get over. Who's making this plan? There is no plan, obviously. We were experts at this genre of game 2 years ago, and then we remade our studio, and it was hard, and we pulled it off, and it was like going back to what you guys did before, and we were like, well, those guys who were good at what we did before left. Mumbach is full of praise for Amy Hennig, who he says brought clever decision-making around story and characters, and remained professional even as it became clear EA's goal for the project were not lining up with the studio's own. So in this next section, he talks about EA Vancouver taking over the game, which happened in, I believe, 2017 after EA shut down Visceral Games and moved Project Ragtag to this new developer, EA Vancouver. Here's what the article has to say, and here's what the producer says. We had this leadership team come in from Vancouver, and not knocking them, they were in the same position I was in Army of Two. They were like, we need to ship this thing, let's go. Cut this, cut this, cut this, Mumbach recalled. And I'm thinking, this is effing Amy Hennig. We have a chance to make the greatest Star Wars game ever made, and a possible Game of the Year contender. This isn't an Army of Two game. I think we would have made the best Star Wars game ever made. The story and the setup and the characters were set up for success, but what we had to execute was going to take a while, and I think the company saw that. Hey guys, you are eventually going to make a crazy good game. At the time, when we got shut down, EA executive Patrick Sutherland was even like, what's the game with winner winner chicken dinner, PUBG? They even sent out a press release that was like, no one cares about single player anymore. I just wish they figured that out 2 years ago. The article goes on to say that during those 2 years, countless hours of development time had gone into making Project Ragtag, and several sequences were near completion. Mumbach goes on to say, we just had a lot of gameplay people never got to see. We had levels, they weren't done, but they were close. We had one set piece that was basically done. We were putting the final touches on it right when the studio was shut down. It was this crazy ATST moment, which was really cool. You were on foot running from it and trying to hunt you down, but you were being more agile, slipping through these alleyways, barreling through and crashing and using all the destruction of Frostbite. You would have been like, oh, that's Star Wars Uncharted. We were definitely sitting in one of the most expensive places to make video games, he said, wondering why Visceral got shut down, but Jedi Fallen Order was made in LA, one of the most expensive places to make a video game. I can't help but feel like this guy is hitting the nail on the head with EA and the problem with the executives over there. They canceled Project Ragtag due to their belief that single-player story-driven games do not sell well. But it's ironic that their single-player story-driven game from 2019, Jedi Fallen Order, sold above expectations. And now we are getting a sequel to Fallen Order in 2022, so it's clear that EA is singing a different tune due to those sales numbers. I'm pretty upset with EA for what they did to Ragtag. A lot of fans wanted a single-player, story-driven game set in the Star Wars universe because the 2 games before Ragtag's set release in May of 2018 were the Battlefront installments, which were just not that great of games. The game, however, was in development since 2013 when they canceled it in 2017, which personally makes no sense to me if the game was planned to release in May of 2018, and even though that was never official, that means they could also have easily delayed the game by a year or so, maybe even released it in December or November of 2018, and the fans would have never known. They would have been none the wiser. I think it's, in hindsight, pretty obvious that EA dropped the ball on this. Their anti-single-player game mentality likely cost them millions in production costs for the time spent making this game, Project Ragtag, but also the opportunity cost too of not selling this game. Jedi Fallen Order sold 10 million copies, at least when last reported in early of 2020, and if we look at Amy Hennig's Uncharted 4, it sold 15 million copies. So for the sake of argument, let's say Ragtag did release in 2018, whether it be May, whether it be December, November, what have you. With the Uncharted series director attached to that title and the backing of EA's marketing and simply having the name Star Wars attached to it, personally I would argue that Star Wars Ragtag would have sold at least, or could have sold at least, 9 million copies at the end of 2018 if the game delivered what it was promised. At $60 minimum per copy, that would be a $540 million return and likely over $150 million in profit for EA. It just seems like EA does not know their audience and definitely does not know the Star Wars fanbase. Thankfully, it seems like they're keeping their noses out of Star Wars like they were prior to 2019. Respawn's Jedi Fallen Order was said to have minimum involvement from EA on the executive side, and Star Wars Squadrons, which releases in October of this year, is also a smaller scale project mostly worked on by EA Motive, and that was kind of a small passion project for that team, not something that EA themselves forced the team to make or got over involved. So it looks like EA has learned their lesson, which is good news, because if you don't learn from your mistakes, then you cannot grow as a company. But I know me and many Star Wars fans and even gamers out there are still saddened to know that we will never get to play Project Ragtag, which had a lot of potential. And seeing as how 2018 was one of the worst years for the Star Wars fanbase in recent memory, I think it would have been a big breath of fresh air to play that game. But tell me your thoughts below. What were your hopes for Project Ragtag? Are you sad that we will never get to play this game? And what do you think about this producer's comments on the game? Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe because it does help out the channel. I'm Star Wars Only. I will see you all next time, and may the Force be with you always.